right, you guys, it's episode 62 of Inner Demons. And like always, I'm going to get straight to it. But check it out, you guys, real quick. Let me take a minute out to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. I hope you guys are enjoying the fireworks. And, you know, for those of you guys that really don't go out and do fireworks on the 4th of July, this is the best time to do it. All those of you that are testing your blowers, that's what I used to do on the 4th of July. Anyways, be safe out there. So I wanted to hit you guys with a quick one. I know I left you guys on a cliffhanger the last time I ran an Inner Demons. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. And, you know, this is where pretty much everything starts to go down right here. Now, the last episode, I listened to the last couple minutes of it, and I pretty much remember where I left off. So obviously there's a lot going on. You know, everything's basically coming to a head right now. I told you guys I felt the walls closing in on me. You know, my addiction was getting bad. I was literally killing myself with that crap out there. I knew the end was near. And, you know, I don't know how. I don't think men have intuition, but I felt it. It was that sixth sense. I just felt something was coming. And, you know, when I moved into that house over there off Beecher Court, nice house, I had a lot of plans for it. I wanted to hook up the backyard, put a barbecue pit back there, do all kind of stuff. But something felt very temporary about that place. I couldn't see the plans falling through. I don't know how to explain it other than I had all kind of plans for that house, but it just felt like it wasn't going to happen. Now, during the first week of June, you know, I don't know what it was, but again, I felt like everything was basically just coming to an end. A lot of things had happened. I still had not made contact with law enforcement since that shooting, or they hadn't pulled me over. I hadn't got stopped for a traffic stop or nothing. So I didn't know what was going on. The only thing that I knew was, you know, the message that I got from Kerry Lindstrom, the lawyer, the homeboy's lawyer. That's what we used to call him. And, you know, he basically said that as far as he knew that there was a self-defense claim, but that I didn't have a warrant. So, you know, I felt somewhat better, but I still felt like they were on my bumper out there. Because again, you know, my lady, she started seeing a lot of things. And even though she was telling me and I was kind of just brushing it off, you know, the guy with the clipboard, the you know, outside in the backyard, it looked like somebody had flashlights out there. The morning before everything happened, or the night before everything happened, she's seen flashlights in the backyard, the van across the street, all that stuff. Even though I was brushing it off, it was still having an effect. I was still, you know, I would think about it. Man, is she just tripping, or is she really seeing these things? You know, I thought she was just paranoid because of everything that was happening. I mean, I was getting into shootouts. I was going on high-speed chases. I was jumping out on fools. Fools were jumping out on me. All kind of stuff was happening. So during that last week, a couple things happened that are telltale, and you guys will understand later. Now, I had went as far. I was still looking at that disc that I told you guys about, that 1,956 pages of court sealed documents. I was going through it. And like I said, you know, we were in the process of going after the individuals that were on that disc that were identified as informants, active informants that were still cooperating with law enforcement at that time. I had even sent the visitor up there and had asked them, what do you want us to do with this list, with these individuals that are being identified? And they basically said, like, come on, you know, we don't need to tell you what to do. You know what to do. So I took that for what it was worth. And, you know, I started to put together a list, a hit list. Now, I know I'm jumping ahead, but I kind of have to, as I'm telling you guys this. They would find these lists on my desk, handwritten lists that were actually, you know, half written. There were Post-it notes all over my computer. We were deciphering the information. Now, the only one that was privy to this information, I only let 2 people check it out. That was Sykes from Goshen, because a lot of that information pertained to him, or at least some of it, not a lot, but some of it. Somebody was telling on him. They wanted him to be abreast of it. They wanted him to know about it. So I called him over, had him sit down and basically just look at the parts that pertain to him. Pony was my second in command. He was my buffer. So I knew I was going to, you know, that I was going to end up getting caught up, and I was hoping that he wouldn't. If I went down, I wanted Pony to at least be able to know everything that was going on. So I felt like it was important for him to check out the disc, to soak up as much information as he could. Matter of fact, I think I even gave him a copy of it so that, in the event something happened to me, that he can continue to decipher the information that was on there. 1,956 pages doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're sitting there and you're reading this stuff, and I mean, it was just document after document, the memorandums, the debriefing reports, the court stuff, a lot of the stuff pertained to Operation Black Widow. Some of it was their discovery. It was just a massive amount of information. So that's one thing that was going on during the first week of June. Now, two of the other things, but let me tell you guys kind of in order how everything was happening, was one, I was on Conejo about paying that money back. And like I told you guys, he was chipping away at it. He would come up, pick up a pound, drop 300 or 400 extra. So he was paying his debt. He was actively paying it. I can say that for a fact. Now, he still owed a lot. I want to say the bill was somewhere around 5,000-6,000, and he had knocked down like maybe 2 G's. So he still owed about 2,000 or 3,000. Now, Latigo, on the other hand, some things started happening that just sent up a lot of red flags. Okay, so Latigo had never been over to that house when I was living there. Obviously, when Roger, the tattoo artist, the guy that was from his hood, from Gilroy 500 block or whatever they call themselves, obviously Latigo had been to that house when Roger used to live over there because that's his homeboy. However, since I moved in, he had never been over there. Like I told you guys, there were very few people that I allowed to come over there. And it wasn't like I didn't trust Latigo. I had a lot of history with this dude. We done time together. We were in Quinn. We were on the 6 yard together, but I knew he was using. And when somebody's using, they're not in the right state of mind. And that's the whole purpose for, the NF having these policies about not using habit-forming drugs, because you develop that dope fiend mentality. You lie, you cheat, you scam, you can't be trusted. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't allow him to come over there when I moved into that house. We would always meet Latigo at that Wendy's that I told you guys down the street off of Aborn. Now, I'd only been over there one time, and that was that one time that I told you guys I went with Pony, and Pony said some cat was looking through his window. I went over there. Later on, I would find out that incident right there was basically when they started watching my house. They followed us. And I don't know how they did it, because I was on a court. And it's not like, they can follow you down the street. It's a dead-end street. So, they had to been real slick about it, maybe just driving by. But at any rate, they did. They started keeping surveillance on my house. And, Vicky had pointed it out as well. She pointed out a van that was parked across the street, and she was like, babe, that van, there's something that's not right about that van. It was a white van with tinted windows. You couldn't see inside of it. I actually walked over across the street to the van and kind of just looked inside, and I couldn't see nothing, but the windows they had like limousine tint on them, so it was hard to see inside. But that van was a surveillance van. It had actual cameras that were fixed on my house. There wasn't nobody manning the cameras. It was empty as far as that goes, but they were surveilling my house from that vantage point right there. That's how they were able to see, me being on that court. That's the only way that they could have seen without coming onto that street, because of how my house was situated. Anyway, so, Latigo wasn't really paying his debt. And time kept on getting pushed back. I kept on giving him another deadline. It kept on getting pushed back, another deadline. And, I started to get aggressive towards Latigo. Latigo, if you don't pay, I'm going to take your truck. I'm going to take your bike, bro. Seriously. The next time that we meet up, if you don't have the money, bring that pink slip with you. Bring both pink slips with you. You're going to sign them over. And, I can't say definitively that I know anything, that I ever seen anything, but later on, this will make sense to you guys. He had a motive to get rid of me. Obviously, he couldn't come up with the money, and he knew that I was going to take his truck, his step side, and his bike. So, at least he had a motive for getting rid of me. I never found out who the informant was that tipped off law enforcement as far as my regiment. Even when, our discovery came out, all that I knew was, because they, I'll tell you guys about all that later, but all I knew is that it was an informant that had worked with the police previously and that had given credible information in a couple of cases that all were, the amount of dope that they got was, multiple pounds. So this was an informant that had a lot of credibility, but they wouldn't expose him because he was still somebody that continued to work in the field with them. So I never found out. So it was an open-ended, it was, when I was in the county jail, we were speculating, we were combing through all the reports, trying to figure out, who it was, who had a motive, who could have told, the different locations that we met up at. And again, I'm gonna get into that later, but one of the other things that I did that week was I got in touch with, my mom and my stepfather. And, it'd been a while since I seen them, since I visited them. And I try to at least get a visit in with them at least every 2 or 3 months. And they were struggling. They were still struggling out there. So every now and then I try to look out for them and help them, to pay their bills or whatever they needed. But I had wrote a note that week, it was by my computer with the rest of my little Post-it notes. And there were a couple notes that were significant because, one of them said that, moms and pops are going to come up this week. So, get ready to give them the Cadillac. I was going to give them the Cadillac that I took from Jerome because it wasn't my type of Cadillac. This car was a nice Cadillac. It was an Eldorado, and it was sitting on like some 22s or some 24s, big wheels. I could have drove that car into Oakland and probably got 5,000-6,000 like that. You know what I mean? It was one of those type of cars that just attracted too much attention, and I didn't need that. That wasn't the type of car that I wanted to be driving around on the east side of San Jose in. So, I was going to give it to them. I was going to let them have it. Plus, I was going to, give them $5,000 just to help them, with their bills, or just to help them just get ahead. But that would never happen. That would never happen. Another note that I had posted by my computer was, and this just, later on when I seen it in my discovery, I was like, damn, man, you really did know that they were coming. Is I had wrote something to the effect of, make sure you move all contraband out to the Cadillac. So what I was going to do is I was going to put all, my contraband that I had in the house, I was going to put it inside the trunk of the Cadillac and park it down the street somewhere away from the house, because I felt like they were going to come. And if they came, they wouldn't be able to search the Cadillac. Or, I was thinking that they wouldn't have known that it was associated with me. So I would have been cool. Being on parole and, when I was out there, it kept me in check. It kept me in check because when I got off parole, I got real lax. I got sloppy, and I got too complacent. Because once I got off parole, I started keeping pounds of meth at the house. I started keeping a lot of, kites, correspondence that I was keeping with leadership. I started keeping a lot of contraband, drugs, paraphernalia, all kind of stuff at the house. I started keeping all kinds of weapons at the house that I normally wouldn't have if I would have been on parole. So parole kept me in check, and it was a good thing as far as that. But, when you're not on paper, you're not on parole, and you don't have to worry about a random, search from a parole officer or from, the local police coming to do a sweep or a search, it keeps you in check. To keep all my contraband at somebody else's house, another safe house that I would always have established, whether it was money, dope, weapons, contraband, kites, whatever it was. If it was illegal and the parole officer, stumbled across it and it was something that I wasn't supposed to have, I kept it somewhere else. But again, I got complacent. Now, all this is going on, and the night of June 3rd, 2004, that night, Vicky went to bed, she laid down, and I stayed up. The connection was supposed to come by the next morning and pick up some money. He had picked up about 40,000 the day before, and he was coming to pick up around another 30,000. So I had it all counted out on my desk. If I can find those pictures, I'll post them. They might be Xerox copied, so they might not be good pictures, but if I can find them, I will post them. You guys will see them. So I had all the money counted out, and this was in a little room that I had converted into an office area. I had a futon in there, and because I stayed up late that night, I had laid down on the futon because Conejo came late, and he picked up a couple pounds that night. And the only other person that came that night before I got raided was Largo. Now, again, I told you guys I had never allowed Largo to come to my house when I was living there. However, that night, Largo called me up and told me that he needed an ounce. He said, "Hey, bro, I need an ounce. I got somebody here. I'm going to charge him like, I don't remember what it was, like 1,200 or something crazy." And he's like, "I'll break you off another 4 off of what I owe you." So, for me, it was a chance to get some of that money. So I didn't feel like going out that night. I broke one of my policies. I told him, "You know what? Swing by, bro." So I told him, swing by the crib and we'll take care of it. Now, like I said, my lady had went to sleep. Vicky went to sleep. So, I was trying not to have too much traffic coming in and out that night. But, I was trying to get this money. And I had never been short to Julio. So when it came to collecting his money or getting the money that I owed to him, I wanted to make sure that I had everything. There wasn't one time I dealt with him that I was like 400, 600, 800 short. Never. So I wanted to keep it like that. Anyway, Largo came by that night. And the first thing I noticed is that, he had that look. His mouth was dry, but it's like he had that white stuff that collects on the side of your, the side of the corners of their mouth when, it's just that look, man. You guys know what I'm talking about. I know those of you that know exactly what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. He was fidgeting, he was amped up, and he had his high beams on. His eyes were huge, man. So I could tell that he was lit up on that shit. So anyway, I got him an ounce. He gave me the money. We shook hands. He bounced. I want to say within the hour or something, Vicky had got up out of the bedroom and had come into the office. And she's like, "Babe," she was like, "I seen somebody in the backyard right now with flashlights." She goes, "Somebody flashed a light at the window. I seen it." She was like, "I don't know what it was. Maybe you might want to go look." So again, me thinking that I was on top of my game, me thinking that she was just seeing things. I looked out there real quick, and I remember I seen the neighbors. So there was some I want to say they were Vietnamese Crips that lived next door to me. And when I looked out the window, I seen them in their backyard, and they were by their porch area. And when they walked around, it's like the light was shining on our window. The window would catch their shadow. So I was thinking that's what it was. However, it wasn't. I would find that out real soon. The other thing is I went to the front porch, I remember, to let Largo in. And when I went to the front porch, I went to turn the light on, and the light didn't turn on. That should have been my cue right there. So they unscrewed my light bulb, law enforcement. They had already been watching my house that night, getting ready to kick my door in the morning. I figured my light bulb blew out. I'll fix it in the morning. So that night, I got pretty much rid of all the dope I had, with the exception of like a pound. I had about an ounce of heroin hidden somewhere. I want to say it was in the kitchen, in one of the drawers where I used to keep it. I had a bunch of weed that I had there that it was just weed that I would smoke. different strains. I had it in an ammunition box, and I had it bagged up in different strains. Later on, they would say that because it was bagged up in multiple baggies, that it was packaged for sale. They actually hit me with the 25 to life for that weed, a strike with a gang enhancement. They also, later on, they would also hit me with the cane sword that one of the homies had gave me on my birthday. It was a cane sword that he got at the flea market, the San Jose flea market. And, you know, when I seen it, it was like one of those samurai type of cane swords. I was gonna hang it up on my wall in my man cave, in my office. And I didn't think anything about it. I didn't even know it was illegal because it was double-edged. But they would also hit me with the 25 to life later on with the gang enhancement for that cane sword. Now, who brings a cane sword to a gunfight? It was just overkill. But anyway, so without getting ahead of myself, let me just tell you guys like this. So, you know, at some point, I ended up falling asleep on the futon. I fell asleep in there, you know. I was waiting for somebody to show up, or I just ended up falling asleep. I want to say that I thought Conejo was going to come back one more time that night, because he came like 3 or 4 times that day. He was trying to knock that bill down. So I fall asleep. It was around, I want to say it was around 5:30 in the morning. They say it was after 6, because in order for them to search your house before 6 o'clock in the morning, there have to be exigent circumstances where, you know, that justifies them coming earlier than 6 o'clock. So at any rate, I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I hear the whole house start shaking. Boom, boom. All the windows start rattling, and I jump up. And I'm thinking to myself, there could only be one of 3 things that are happening. Either somebody's at the front door and they're trying to rob me. They're stupid enough to try to rob me. The second thing that it might be is, you know, the NF leadership might have sent a squad to take me out. Now, I hadn't done nothing at that time. I was completely, fully committed, 100, 1000% dedicated to the NF. I lived and breathed for the NF. There was nothing that, you know, I had to worry about. I didn't have no skeletons, nothing that was going to come back to get me. But the politics had turned cutthroat, and I knew that. So in that game right there, the game turned dirty. I knew that at any given time, somebody could push an agenda. I knew that it could be straight bullshit, but still, you know, with the right crafty individual that has the right amount of status, the right credibility, that they could push a line like that. And that's what happens. Nobody is beyond being expendable. Everybody's expendable in that lifestyle. Just trust me. So I always knew that. Even look at Mike Eel. Mike Eel was, you know, that's a prime example of somebody that put in 30 years of loyal service and gets whacked anyway. So, you know, that thought crossed my mind real fast. All these things crossed my mind within the matter of seconds. So I think, you know, to myself, when I start to hear the door getting kicked, either somebody's coming in to somebody's stupid enough to try to rob me. They sent a squad to take me out, or somebody told on me and it's law enforcement. But whatever it is, it's coming through that door. So, you know, Vicky had heart problems. I told you guys about this before. She had lupus. She had the type of lupus that affected her major organs. I've already talked about it, so I don't need to talk about it again. But because of, you know, how fragile and delicate, you know, her situation was, I didn't want them coming in, whoever it was. Whatever was going to happen, I wanted it to happen right there in the living room. I didn't want her to be involved in it. So that's where I went. I went to the door where, you know, whatever was coming in the house was coming in. And when I came down the hall, I turned the corner and I see the door. I see it coming in. Boom. The door was holding pretty good, because they hit it around 8 times. Boom. I see it. and little chunks of the door flying past me. And it's like for a minute, I almost froze. I almost froze and couldn't move. I was just looking at the door, watching the door. You know, when something like that happens, it's like sometimes you just freeze up, and that's what I did. I'm looking at the door, trying to calculate like what the hell is happening, but whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen within a couple seconds. Whatever kind of fate I'm gonna meet right now is about to happen. So I'm watching the door, and all of a sudden, the whole section around the locking mechanism, that whole piece just flew off. So they must have hit it with the batter ram in order for it to fly off the way that it did. But it flew past me and it rolled into the living room, and then the door flew open, and it was all kinds of cops in full tactical gear. San Jose SWAT, B&E, Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement. You had San Jose PD, you had Santa Clara PD, you had Campbell PD. They even had a couple of highway patrol officers that were there. They came deep. And, you know, I'm a light sleeper, man. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm a light sleeper, and there's no need for me to lie about this. What happened, happened. But if they would have turned on that speaker that I told you guys about in the last episode, I would have woke up. I would have heard it, because they had a speaker that, you know, when SWAT or B&E, when those guys, they come to raid you, they have a speaker that is hooked up to their to their vehicle, their tactical vehicle, and they turn it up loud, and the message was, occupants of 3230 Beecher Court, we have a search warrant, open the door. It just kept repeating that. Like, it must have said it like 40 times before they were done, and somebody finally turned it off. And then the neighborhood just went quiet. So, you know, when the door flies open, though, the door flies open, I see it's cops. You know, I didn't feel any better that it wasn't a squad to come take me out. I didn't feel any better that it wasn't somebody coming to try to rob me. All three of those situations were bad, and this one was bad. You know, I knew that it was game over. I was a three-striker, and this was going to be pretty much, this was going to be it right here. And even those thoughts were crossing my mind. And when they're standing there, you know, I must have looked pretty ridiculous standing there with, you know, my basketball shorts, not bicycle shorts, my basketball shorts and my slingshot or my wife beater. And, you know, I didn't have a weapon in my hand, but here I am standing there looking at 20 to 30 armed officers in full tactical gear, and they're telling me to get the fuck down on the ground, and I'm not getting down. I'm advancing towards them, but I'm not coming at them aggressive. I'm just like, hey, back up, man, back up, my girl, you know what I mean? And they weren't trying to hear it. You know, they're all amped up. Everybody's adrenaline's going. They're all cussing at me, get the fuck, get your ass on the ground. And, you know, later on, I would find out too that they thought I was going to go out in a blaze of glory, because I was a three-striker and because of who I was. They thought I was going to go out. The thought was there, according to what I would later hear in some of their briefings. They talked that morning, this guy's got nothing to lose. He's a three-striker. You know, this is going to be it for him. So there's a chance that he's going to have a weapon and he's going to go out in a blaze of glory. But that didn't happen. However, you know, I'm standing there and I'm telling them to back up. At one point, they pretty much, they come through the door. Well, before that, they start shooting the flash grenades at me. And that was just to, you know, when they shoot the flash grenades, this is supposed to give them an advantage. That's the whole purpose for shooting flash grenades, is to, you know, for the people in the house, temporarily, it's supposed to just like confuse you or throw you off. And this is when they're coming in on you. But the reason why they were shooting those at me was because I wouldn't get down. So they shot me about 4 times with them in the legs. They hit me in the legs, and I didn't feel it at the time. Again, my adrenaline was going too. So once they start advancing, they get close enough, they snatch me up. They snatch me up, they pull me out the front door, throw me on the grass. They all dogpile me. they cuff me up, and I'm telling them, hey man, it's just me and my girl, man. You know what I mean? She's got heart problems. Don't go in there all crazy, man. They're like, who else is, where's the dog? And even though I'm communicating with them in my mind, I'm still evaluating everything that's going on, because when they said that, I was thinking to myself, damn, where's the dog? These dudes did their homework. How did they know I have a dog? It wasn't like I went out walking this dog anywhere. So somebody had to have told them that. Somebody that had been in my house had to have told them he's got a dog. But the dog was a little small, like Gizmo. It was a little small Pomeranian. It was a little small dude, man. He was tiny. He was probably like 10 pounds. And I was like, man, ain't no fucking pit bull, man. It's a little Pomeranian, man. Ain't no pit bull in here, man. So anyway, they come in and they go into the back where Vicky's at. They get her. In the meantime, while they're getting her, excuse me, they sit me on the couch. I sit on the couch and I look down at my legs and I'm like, damn, it was, I didn't really feel my legs that they were burnt up, but they were black, crispy black. And it had singed all the hair off my legs. But I looked down at him and I just laughed because it was just crazy. I was like, damn, these motherfuckers burnt my legs up. So then Vicky comes out. She comes out and she's in handcuffs. And that tore me up right there. To see her in handcuffs, she had never been in trouble. And I had always told her, I'd always promised her, I'll never let you get caught up in my shit. This is a lifestyle that I chose to live. And I committed myself to this lifestyle. You didn't. Granted, you're with me. And if something ever happens, all I can do is try to protect you the best way that I can. But I'll never let you get caught up in my shit. But seeing her in handcuffs, it had a bad effect on me. I seen her and I was like, man, take the cuffs off her, man. She didn't do nothing. I started telling them right there, look, everything you guys find in this house is mine. She don't got nothing to do with anything going on there. She don't know nothing. I'll take responsibility for everything. Just take her out the cuffs, man, and let her go. But these cops were like, look, man, we're just here to, we're here to do the breach. This is not our case. There's going to be an agency that's going to be arriving shortly. This is their case, and they're the ones you're going to want to talk to. So, they're going through the house. They're finding shit. They find the weed, and they're like, yeah, this is 25 life. I hear another one in the back saying, here's another 25 life. They find the cane sword. They find some other weapons, and they found the heroin, and they don't find the crystal or the meth. It's in the garage. Nobody found it. So, I'm hearing them, I'm listening to them, and so anyway, as I'm sitting there, I look over at Vicky, and she asked me, she whispers, she goes, is there anything here? And I told her, yeah, there is. And she started crying. She started crying, and again, that bothered me. It bothered me to see her in cuffs and to see her just in that state. And I told her, I was like, don't worry about it. I'm gonna make sure that you get cut loose. And she was like, that's not gonna do nothing for you. She was like, you promised that this would never happen. You promised you'd never get taken away from me. What am I gonna do now? You took my independence from me. You know what I mean? What am I gonna do? And she's crying. You know what I mean? If I ever felt like, if there was a dark moment besides some of the ones that I would feel later in the county jail, that was one right there. There was no comeback today. I couldn't, there was nothing I could say to pacify her. Like, yeah, I'm gone. I'll make sure you don't get taken, but I'm gonna sacrifice myself. And there's nothing that I could tell her to make it right. I was just like, hey, you never know. We'll see what happens. Let's just see what happens before we jump to conclusions. That's the best thing I could say to her. So, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden this white cat walks in. He goes, hey, what's up, boxer? He was like, I'm gonna holler at you in a minute, man. And he walks to the back of the house where they're searching. I look at her and I'm like, who the fuck is this dude? And he goes back there, and I can hear them telling them what they found. They found the cane sword, they found this dope, they found the weed, they found the heroin, they found the money. And at some point he walks back into the living room where we're at, And again, I don't got pictures of this. I do have a Xerox picture of me and her sitting on the couch. It's hard to see. I'll try to post it, see if you guys can see it. You might not even be able to see it. Our backs are turned. If you see the picture, our backs are turned. In the picture, you can see a cop it's a female cop sitting on my lazy boy chair, like to the left. You can barely see her, like you can see probably a little bit of her. She's sitting there watching us. My girl, she got a blanket around her, and I'm sitting there with the wife beater on, handcuffed. So he comes back in the living room. He's like, let me holler at you, man. So he walks me out to the backyard, to my porch area. And this is exactly what he tells me verbatim. He's like, check it out, man. He's like, I don't got a hard on for the NF. He's like, this is nothing personal. I'm just a narcotics agent doing my job. He's like, I know what you're doing. I know you're running a regiment. I know you're a 3-striker. He was like, you're never going to see the outside of a prison again. He was like, it's cool. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? And then he says, he's like, we know about the limousine business, and I know Pony's your second in command. He's like, you know where you might be? I was like, look, check this out, man. I'm not going to talk about nobody else. I'm not talking about anybody but what you guys find here. I'll take responsibility for everything that you guys found at this house, drugs, whatever it is. Just let her go. And this cop, his name was Dan Livingston, and he was, at that time, he was fairly new. He'd probably been a cop for about 6 years. So he tells me, he's like, did we find everything? He goes, I'll tell you what, if you're willing to do that, I'll cut her loose. But if we find something that you didn't tell us about, she's going to get charged with it too. He goes, did we find everything? And I said, no, there's like a pound of meth in the garage that your guys missed, man. Somebody got in trouble. But anyways, so he's like, show me where it is. So we walk into my garage. I tell him it's right there in that blanket. It's wrapped up. So he pulls it out. And, to be honest with you guys, and I'm going to close it up in a minute on this note right here, because at least I wanted to get this part in. This is the 4th of July. So, this one right here is, I'm going out with the bang right here. This is when I'm getting rated. I think this day was befitting to drop this episode. So anyways, when I led him to that pound, I didn't trust cops. I didn't trust them at all. As far as I was concerned, they were the enemy. But in that situation, I didn't have a choice. I had to put some trust in them to keep their word. I had no other choice, no other recourse. There was nothing else that I could do. I could have not said nothing and she would have got wrapped up, or I could have did what a lot of other dudes would have done. And, that's her dope. She doesn't have a record. She'll get out by tomorrow or something, but I didn't do that. I didn't do none of that. I had to take a chance and tell him and just hope that he would keep his word. I didn't believe that he would, honestly. But like I said, I had to take a chance. So, I took it for what it was worth. And basically after that, I told you guys too, the other thing that I tripped out on when I was sitting there is that I seen a white guy walking around with a briefcase, and he was just walking around looking. It was like he was at the SWAT meet or something. And he ended up being the district attorney. I would find out, the first time I went to arraignment, I remember seeing him and I recognized him. I'm like, that's that dude that walked through the house that morning when I got raided. So, I'm sitting there with Vicky for a couple more minutes, and I tell him too, man, take the cuffs off her, man. You know what I mean? She ain't got nothing to do with it. He said, I can't just let her go right now. I got to at least bring her down to Campbell, and we got to go through the motions and, get a statement from her, but she'll be out by tonight. So I'm like, all right, and I went back in the living room. I sat down, and she's like, what did he say? And I kind of told her the truth, but again, I kind of didn't. I wanted to keep her pacified. I didn't want her tripping. I didn't want her stressed out. If I was going to be truthful with her, I would have told her, you know what, I'm gone. I'm gone. This is it right here. I'm not gonna come up out of this one. You know, this is the one that's gonna put me away right here. But I didn't. I just told her, you know, he just, you know, said all it is a drug case and we'll see what happens. And this has got to go through the motions in court. So we'll see what's up. So anyways, we sit there for a couple more minutes. And again, I look over at her and she's, you know, she's still in tears. And she just kept telling me, what am I going to do, boxer? You know, she's like, I don't believe none of this is happening, you know, but it was, and it did, you know, unfortunately. So, you know, the only part that I regret right there is at one point when it came time for them to transport me, they let her go back into the room with the female cop and they let her put, you know, she had on some shorts and clothes that she sleeps in. And they let her put on some clothes. And when she came back out, I was walking out of the living room. You know, the only thing that I regret was when it was time for them to transport me is when she was coming out of the room after they let her get dressed. You know, I was walking by her. She was coming down the hall, and I regret not leaning over and giving her a kiss right there, because that would be the last time that I would have an opportunity to touch her. And you know, I just told her, I'm like, babe, I'll call you later. I told her, don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be all right. And I walked out. They had a highway patrol and 3 other cops that were part of, I want to say they were part of B&E at that time, that transported me to Campbell PD. Like I said, this is probably a good time right here to cut this one short, because from this point on, some other things happen in Campbell PD that I want to make sure that I explain everything to you guys so that this resonates and that you guys don't miss nothing. I don't want to run through this too fast because there's a lot of things that would happen. And I want you guys to get the full gist of everything step by step. All right, you guys. Anyways, this is probably a good spot to cut this one off right here. You know, like I said, this is befitting to drop this one on the 4th of July. This was June 4th, 2004, the day that I got raided right here. The last day that I would be out there on the streets of San Jose. During this whole time, I was running around out there as the regimental commander. And, you know, from there, we would get transported to Campbell PD. But I want to make sure that I really explain everything that happens step by step through this whole process. Because some of this stuff, you guys that are really paying attention, you're gonna reflect back on it and you're gonna be like, oh man, I remember that, and that's got to be this fool right here, or when that happened, that's why this happened, or that's why they did that. You guys will understand it. There's a lot more to go in the Inner Demon series, so I don't want to blow through it too quick. But again, I hope everybody had a happy 4th of July. I hope you guys are out there enjoying it. I hope you guys are out there enjoying the fireworks. Be safe. We'll probably run another live in the next day or two. I appreciate all the support, everybody that's been tapping in. And with that said, again, this episode 62, this is your boy B, and I'm out.